the dangers of uncontrolled pleasure and sexual desires. Ladies and gentlemen, power is not merely found in wealth or dominance over others. It is first and foremost the ability to control oneself. The man who cannot master his own desires will inevitably be mastered by them. He will be led not by reason, not by strategy, but by impulse, by the fleeting temptations that promise pleasure but deliver ruin. Throughout history, the great men who rose to power, who built empires, wrote their names in the annals of time, understood one fundamental truth: indulgence is the enemy of discipline, and discipline is the key to success. The moment one surrenders to his unbridled sexual desires, he relinquishes the very essence of his power. He is no longer a king, but a slave. The weakening of willpower. Understand this: sexual desire is among the most powerful forces in human nature. It can inspire art, fuel ambition, and bring men to their knees. But when uncontrolled, it is an insidious force, gnawing at a man's will, leaving him feeble and unable to harness his full potential. The more one indulges in pleasure, the more one craves it. What once was a minor indulgence becomes a relentless addiction, a hunger that is never satisfied. The man who lacks discipline in his desires finds that his mind, once sharp and cunning, has become dull and distracted. His ambitions, once lofty and grand, are now undermined by his need for immediate gratification. Consider the fate of great men undone by their desires. Powerful rulers such as Mark Antony, whose love for Cleopatra cost him the Roman Empire. Or King David, whose lust for Bathsheba led him to orchestrate a murder that tainted his legacy. These were not weak men, yet they fell because they did not control their desires. Their desires controlled them. The trap of manipulation. There is another hidden danger. The man who cannot control his desires becomes easy prey for those who seek to exploit him. History is filled with cautionary tales of men who thought themselves powerful, but were reduced to mere pawns by those who understood their weaknesses. The courtesans, the mistresses, the seductresses, these figures have toppled kings, ruined fortunes, and led mighty warriors into defeat. A man ruled by his desires is a man who can be controlled. Women who understand this will manipulate him, use him, extract from him what they desire, and leave him hollow. His focus shifts from power and achievement to mere pleasure-seeking. He becomes predictable, his ambitions secondary to his cravings. He will sacrifice wealth, status, and even his dignity for the fleeting embrace of a momentary high. The erosion of masculine strength. Beyond manipulation, consider what unbridled indulgence does to a man's spirit. Men throughout history have built civilizations, conquered territories, and created legacies that lasted beyond their lifetimes. But these men were disciplined. They knew that pleasure was a tool to be used sparingly, a reward for conquest, not the conquest itself. A man who constantly indulges in sex, pornography, or the mindless pursuit of women dilutes his own energy. His testosterone, his drive, his primal force, everything that makes him potent in the world, diminishes. He grows lethargic, indifferent to his goals, content with a life of temporary highs rather than long-term gains. Compare this man to one who channels his desires into productive endeavors, who turns his hunger into ambition, his frustrations into fuel for success. He builds businesses. He dominates his field. He leaves behind a legacy that outlives him. He does not waste his energy in frivolous pursuits, but invests it in something greater. The solution: mastery over self. So what must a man do? The answer is as ancient as time itself: discipline. Self-mastery is the cornerstone of true power. To control one's desires is to control one's fate. This does not mean complete abstinence, nor does it mean living in repression, but it does mean control. A man must learn to transmute his sexual energy, to redirect it toward his ambitions. He must establish standards, never allowing himself to be ruled by temptation, never giving in to desires that do not serve his greater purpose. Women must never be the focal point of his existence. His mission must be. He must cultivate strength, physical, mental, emotional. He must distance himself from the modern trappings of easy pleasure, pornography, meaningless relationships, time-wasting pursuits. He must, above all, understand that to be led by pleasure is to be led to destruction. If history has taught us anything, it is that the human spirit is malleable, and civilization, despite its outward grandeur, is ever at risk of decay. There exists an insidious force, one that masquerades as progress, liberation, and modernity, yet at its core seeks to enfeeble the will of men, to erode their autonomy, and to render them slaves to their most base instincts. I speak, of course, of the unchecked pursuit of pleasure, particularly that of the sexual kind. A force that, if left untamed, threatens to unravel the very fabric of the human soul. In my work, Brave New World, I sought to depict a society where pleasure had been weaponized, where men and women, instead of struggling against oppression, embraced it willingly because it was wrapped in the soft embrace of indulgence. The controllers of this world did not wield whips or chains, for such crude instruments were unnecessary. Instead, they offered pleasure in such abundance that men no longer yearned for truth, nor fought for freedom, nor aspired to greatness. They had been pacified by their own desires, reduced to creatures who sought only the next moment of ecstasy, the next ephemeral delight. It is a strange irony that what we so ardently pursue, pleasure, can also be the source of our undoing. Sexual liberation, for instance, has been heralded as a victory, a triumph over repression, and indeed, there is merit in allowing man to experience his nature freely. Yet, as with all freedoms, when exercised without restraint, without higher purpose, and without discipline, it ceases to be a gift and becomes a shackle. Pleasure, when unchecked, breeds passivity. A man consumed by his desires does not think deeply. He does not reflect upon the eternal questions of existence. He does not challenge authority, nor does he seek self-improvement. Instead, he is lulled into a stupor, deceived by the notion that his constant gratification equates to happiness. But there is a cosmic difference between pleasure and fulfillment, between momentary delight and true contentment. The former is fleeting, a mirage that vanishes as soon as it is attained, requiring ever more indulgence to sustain itself. The latter is built upon discipline, struggle, and the pursuit of higher ideals. A society driven by unrestrained hedonism will, inevitably, crumble from within. The Romans, at the height of their empire, indulged in all manners of excess, mistaking pleasure for prosperity. Their decline was not sudden, it was a slow decay, a corrosion of discipline, a loss of purpose, and the withering away of their moral core. The same threat looms over modern civilization, as technology and permissiveness conspire to offer pleasure at every turn, reducing the need for self-control, for patience, for wisdom. Consider, if you will, the modern man, bombarded with images, with stimulation, with an infinite array of distractions. The instant gratification culture ensures that he need never wait, never suffer, never long for anything. But what is a man who does not long? What is a soul that never suffers? He is, in essence, an empty vessel, devoid of depth, incapable of love. For love itself demands restraint, demands sacrifice, demands something higher than mere lust. It is not pleasure that is the enemy, for pleasure in its rightful place is a beautiful and necessary thing. Rather, it is the unthinking, mindless submission to it that corrodes the very essence of what makes us human. To be human is to struggle, to aspire, to seek meaning beyond the confines of mere sensation. We must ask ourselves, are we to be beings of depth and intellect, capable of forging our own destiny? Or are we to become passive recipients of pleasure, easily manipulated, easily controlled, and ultimately easily discarded. The choice, my dear friends, is ours. But know this: history does not look kindly upon civilizations that succumb to the sweet poison of excess. They become relics, cautionary tales, monuments to what could have been had discipline and wisdom prevailed over indulgence. Let us not be counted among them. Gentlemen, the world rewards those who master themselves and punishes those who do not. Do not become another casualty of indulgence. Do not let momentary pleasure rob you of lifelong power. Harness your desires, control your impulses, and direct your energy towards something greater. That is how you become powerful. That is how you leave a legacy. We are in Deceptor.